As I say, man, it's not that I'm ignoring I'm not ignorant to what's going on, but I am ignoring that it has any power over my emotions and over the way that I show up. Welcome to Eugene Holden's Academy of Self-Mastery, where transformation meets action. I'm Eugene Holden. I'm one of your guides on this journey of personal growth, mindset shifts, and deep self-awareness. Each episode, we dive into the tools, wisdom, and strategies you need to break through limitations and step into your highest potential. No fluff, no shortcuts here, just real conversations, practical insights, and a community dedicated to mastery in every area of life. So, if you're ready to unlock your power, elevate your mindset, and create a life by design, then let's get started. Welcome to Eugene Holden's Academy of Self-Mastery. Welcome to the deep end.
The confusion, or I believe, around that is there's celebration as in things are wonderful. There was a promotion, there's a baby, there's, those birthdays, those kinds of celebrations. And people limit themselves to celebrating just those situations.
Mm-hmm.
They feel they don't deserve or have the right or are guilty about celebrating the fact that you got out of bed this morning, celebrating
Right.
that, you know, this morning it took 3 buses to stop for me today. Did I celebrate when that third bus stopped? You bet I did. I got on and I was so happy. I was doing the little happy dance. And so when people feel like I can't celebrate because people are suffering, you're not celebrating the suffering. You're celebrating the fact that you're here. You can make a difference. You can
Right.
affect change. So you're celebrating the fact that you are alive in this
Right.
moment. That's what you're celebrating. And then that gets your mind thinking in ways of how can I help? How can I be of service? How can I celebrate even greater? Right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And conversely, if I feel when I feel that I can't celebrate because all of this is going on, all of the suffering is going on, I can't celebrate my wins, whatever they are, then
Hmm.
I add to the suffering on an energetic level. Like, whoa, God, it's
Exactly.
so bad what's going on, and just celebrate, waking up,
Hmm.
celebrate everything. Yeah,
Yes.
even with everything that's going on,
Yes.
you know.
It's been scientifically proven over and over again that people can gather and have the high vibration of peace, love, joy,
Mm,
all those positive emotions, and can lower the crime rate,
yeah,
can affect the weather, can there's just so many times when that was the intention. Let's gather these people together
yeah,
and with this intention and see what kind of vibration we can create. Because when we're sitting and thinking, I don't matter, you do
mm,
matter because it
yeah,
doesn't matter. You're on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast,
right,
but we're setting an intention with these words that we're sharing with everybody that
yeah,
is magnified.
right,
Yeah.
right. And that's the thing is to get everybody to really understand that everybody, you matter. Your voice matters. Your presence
Yeah,
matters.
absolutely. Every time.
Every time, all the time, all the time. We were speaking before we went on, and with everything that's going on all across the world and all across the nation, and particularly right now in Los Angeles, because that's where the news is and has been. We were speaking about, and you brought up a good point. Who do we talk to about all of this that's going on? It's, people may be afraid to talk to the police or your congressperson or the senate. Or so who do we talk to? Who do we talk to? Where do we go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my first thought is just talk about it, right? Because things in the hamster wheel of the head cause a lot of trouble. And we have these imaginary arguments, that raise our heart rate and such. So it's good to talk about it. And the kind of condition around that is to make sure that you don't get in a pity party where
Right.
you're talking with people and you get yourselves all depressed or all wired up or all, negative emotions. And within that group of talking to someone or some people, some answers may evolve for you. What can we do? And so if you feel like your government has let you down, if you feel like you can't trust the police, then it goes back to, I can keep my vibration high. I can smile at people passing me by on the street. Even a police officer can be
Right.
a hello, right? So you
Right.
continue to radiate, I'm okay. I'm okay. And when
Yeah.
more of us can radiate, we're okay, that sense of being good can permeate the sense of hopelessness. So because they, air quotes, want us to stay inside, they want us to watch the news. They want, you know what I mean? They want us to not mobilize, and we can mobilize in a good way. There's been, going back to Gandhi and before, there's been so many ways, Martin Luther King Jr., ways to protest peacefully, way to
Yeah.
have your voice heard in a large crowd from a place of promise.
Yeah.
Imagine the outcomes that we want and then reverse engineer it to how do we get there?
How do we get there? I liked what you said, El, because I think it's important to talk with friends and whoever, and family, and not from a place of, oh, woe is me. And there's stuff that's going on. And even if, wow, things are terrible right now, if that's the conversation, okay. And as you were saying, is not to get stuck in that. It's like, okay, I love acceptance, to accept that this is what's going on. Okay, got it. And in LA, which is where I grew up, as just a couple of months ago, Pasadena and Altadena, which is where I really grew up. I mean, that's where I lived, burning and all of that. And and I'm
Mhm.
here on the East Coast, and what I found myself doing is speaking with friends. I'm like, oh man, I mean, it hurt my heart.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, who am I to be in this? Because that's my first question before what's mine to do. Who am
Mm,
I to be in this? Because once I realize and recognize who am I to be in this situation, then that
mhm.
informs what's mine to do, right? So, well, let me be on the phone with friends. Let me be that voice, or let me be that listening.
Mhm.
Let me be that place where if people need to call me and just cry about what's going on, okay,
Yeah.
okay, then that's what I'm doing,
Yeah.
man. You
Yeah.
know,
Expanding on that, like I have a couple of clients who've recently called me, like we're not even on the books, for a while, and they just had to cry. They just
yeah,
had to say, this is wrong, this doesn't make sense. This is the United States. This is, they can affect martial law over something that we didn't ask to be protected against, all of these feelings. And then you hear the other side of the fence on certain news channels that are talking about, well, these people have been doing this without any consequence, now here's the consequence. So it's not asking you to pick a side, it's asking you, because when you and I worked in the rehab facility, we learned that in the 12 steps, the step of forgiveness was very often the one where it would all fall apart
right,
because people confuse forgiveness with agreement.
right,
They confuse the fact that you can forgive these actions of this person. It doesn't mean you agree.
right,
It means that I see what you are doing. I forgive you. We can imagine that they must be hurting in some way, shape, or form to be able to do these things.
right.
And now I can go forward untethered by that pain.
Yeah.
and that's suffering. So your good question, if people didn't write it down, is who am I to be before what am I to do?
Right.
That way you don't have to regret your actions.
Right. Right. Because I can be pissed off, and if I'm coming from that, and if my actions are coming from there, I may be calling L. Can you bail me out? Yeah.
Yeah,
Or hurting someone, or and self. Yeah. Who am I to be in this?
yeah.
Yeah. And as I say, man, it's not that I'm ignoring I'm not ignorant to what's going on, but I am ignoring that it has any power over my emotions and over the way that I show up. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Because we want to show up authentically and consistently.
Right. Right.
And sometimes that takes um, it takes patience, it takes observation, it takes willingness, it takes so many things to not, what was it I was just talking to somebody about yesterday? To, what is it? Don't react, respond. So
Yes.
let's not be reactive. Let's not
Right.
turn into human nuclear reactors.
Mm.
Instead, let's be first responders.
Yeah.
Let's show up to help, to be of a place of service.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
Does that look like?
What does that look like for you, that person personally? How can I show up? How can I be a beneficial person, beneficial energy, a beneficial presence in what's going on now?
Hmm.
In what's going on now? And we were speaking during the meeting with Sharon and Reverend Melissa a few days ago. And Sharon brought up, well, this is going on, and we keep going back, and we keep, and Rev Melissa sat back. She said, "Listen, this is what I can do." And she told this story about having to go. I don't think it was the DMV, but it was something like, that. And oh, she went to court and found that her name was not on the list. So she asked where is she to go. So she went there, and she was in line, and people in line, when they would get up to the window, they were giving the clerk just a hard time, just and so when Melissa got up there, she asked the lady, "So how are you doing?" And whatever the answer was, Melissa said, "No, no, no, really, how are you doing?" And the woman said, "This is hard. I'm just doing my job." So Melissa talked to her a little bit with a great smile of hers, right? And said, "Listen, you know what?" And the clerk gave her the information that she needed. And she said, "Thank you so much, and you are doing a great job." Can you imagine what that woman, that person must have felt just to hear that?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's just a small thing, but it's huge.
yeah.
It's huge, you know,
Mhm.
because I can't fly to LA, nor am I going to fly to LA to jump into the protest, because that's not mine to do. What is mine to do, I can pick up the phone just to check up on some friends,
Yeah.
and to give them a kind word. So with all of this that's currently going on in the world, again, who are we to be in this situation? I loved what you said. Am I going to be a human nuclear reactor?
Mhm.
I love that. Or am I going to be a first responder? How am I going to respond? How do I choose to respond?
Right.
And here's the other question around that. Do I choose to respond or to react?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
both of those words have very different feelings.
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe hop on YouTube or use Google for Good and learn all you can about de escalation.
Mm.
Become very well versed in what de escalation looks like. Just because the people in charge haven't been trained in that doesn't mean that you can't flip the script by doing the opposite of what they were trained that you would probably do.
Right.
So empower yourself with the skills and the tools and the talents for this may happen, and therefore these are the things that I can do in response.
Yeah. Yeah. What I found is when coming from that space, L, what I found is whatever I need to whatever I need to accomplish whatever it is I'm going for, those resources show up. The support is there. It's just so going, I love what you said, going to Google for good,
Mhm.
de-escalation. Okay, how again, who am I to be here and now how am I to show up? Now, and I want to make sure personally that I do not show up as one of those people who are, God, this is messed up, and stay there.
Mhm.
Because, and you mentioned this the last time we were on, taking up that space, that real estate in the mind affects the
Mhm.
body temple.
Mhm.
Man, and I don't know about you all, but I want to be here for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is number one, I want to thank anybody who's still listening here who didn't turn us off the minute we said, how can I be in this? Because we're not about the reaction, right? And so you all are listening for other tools, other ideas, other actions. And I want to thank you for having an open enough mind
Mm,
to say, I'd like to learn more,
yeah.
beyond what I know. And we definitely don't have all the answers. And we are in no stretch of the imagination trying to say that there's nothing wrong with what's going on at all. Being Mexican on my dad's side, I have a lot of family that could be taken. This is very close to home for me,
Right.
100%, very much so. And so again, I look at how can I make a difference? And for me, right now, it's vibrationally.
Yeah.
It's staying happy, staying healthy, being a good listener, learning more about de-escalation. That was
Yeah.
something that somebody recommended that I thought was amazing. And then when you were talking about the temple, this is something that I always share with people. What was that Taylor Swift song? Shake it off, shake it off. We
Hmm.
physically have to, like how a dog, do a dog in slow motion off the water. Sometimes we need to jumping jack, jump in place, play a good song and just dance like you're
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon in Footloose and sing and get into nature. Get your feet bare in some grass if you can. Get to the sand of the ocean. Treat your tell your temple thank you for carrying me through this
Yeah.
and give it what it wants. Give it what it wants. Not a gallon of ice cream, but maybe a pint, give it what it
Right.
wants.
Right. 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 And be okay with that pint. Yeah. Now, I
Hmm.
want to go back to something that you said in terms of, the word forgiveness. It doesn't mean agreement. And the word that I used prior to you bringing that up was acceptance. If for me, a part of for forgiveness is accepting, okay, this is what happened. Doesn't mean that it's cool. I don't agree with it, but I'm accepting that it happened because a lot of times when we don't accept what's going on, it keeps us from going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we don't accept what's going on, it keeps us from going forward. And we're here to go forward.
Yeah, we are. It keeps us tied to the story
Yeah.
because our lives are one continuous movie and
Yeah.
we're the writer, the director, the producer, the star, the all of that.
The caterer.
And so watch out.
Yeah.
Watch out for that Groundhog Day movie
Right.
for your own self.
Yeah. With everything that's going on, I'm glad that you brought that up. With everything that's going on, we are still the directors of our lives. We're still the screenplays. We write our own script. Yeah,
Mhm.
beautiful. So how
Yeah.
do we want to show up?
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. You probably have been referred to as this as well, right? God, Eugene, you are just so. Somebody called me. You are an eternal optimist. Yeah, because I believe in us.
Yeah.
I really do.
Mm-hmm.
People are amazing,
Mm-hmm.
strange, a little crazy, and amazing, and and,
Exactly.
and amazing.
I love that. I've been called a few names for my overly optimistic attitude about things regularly, but one of the biggest compliments I can get is when people say you're not a realist. You're not being real about what's going on. And I say thank you because I don't want to be a realist. I want to be one of infinite possibilities.
Mm,
I want to be one of somebody who can turn the corner, who can hop out of the canoe and carry it over my head if need be for a while. And, whatever that might look like,
yeah,
that's the person I want to be.
right,
So when we reverse engineer, how do we want this craziness to look like? Instead of thinking that's not possible, imagine what we want and then reverse engineer it. Okay, well, in order for that to happen, what would need to happen? And back it up to today. And it might be something as simple as I'm going to choose not to over self medicate because this stuff is getting the best of me. I'm
right,
going to choose to keep my heart rate down, go for a walk, talk to somebody fun. Like, what does that look like today? And do it back and forth. Because you know what we all know? All of a sudden, the higher ups in what's the word I'm looking for? Government, higher ups in the government can decide something else is more important. And then this just all stops.
right.
Wouldn't that be ideal?
Wouldn't that
No?
be ideal?
So yeah, we can hope, we can pray, we can imagine.
We can imagine. We can imagine. And that's not some wishy-washy woo-woo stuff, right?
Mm-mm.
Because everything that we look at came from imagination. I mean, somebody imagined this thing called Zoom, and whatever it was before that and before that. So imagine a world. What's that song? Imagine there's no, yeah, Imagine by John Lennon.
Right.
And then I want to attach that with Gandhi saying, be the change we want to see. Now, and that's where the work is. With everything that's going on, that's why I go back to who am I to be? So let me be peace in this. Let me be creative in this. Let me be silent in this. Let me be loving in this. And whatever I choose to be, again, as I said earlier, that informs what's mine to do. Man,
Mm-hmm.
that's, and I keep saying that because I feel that that's such an important thing. Let me connect with who am I to be in this?
Yeah,
And if
that's
we
a big
don't,
question.
yeah. Yeah, it is. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with asking the question, what's mine to do? Because action is what's necessary. And I want to be clear on my action based on who am I being, which is connected to my purpose. Uh-oh, we're back to that again. Yeah. Or still,
Because inspired action is so much more wonderful than obsessed action.
say that again. Write that down. Yeah,
Yeah, because inspired action is, it's divine or it's intuitive or it's whatever. Whereas obsessive action feels like something that you have to do. And now
right.
you're tethered again
Yeah,
to old thoughts and programs.
yeah. Oh, so those those last words, old thoughts and programs. How does one, L, Um, Number one, let me just jump to the end. How does one not act from old thoughts and programs?
You work with us.
Well, there is that.
We've been doing this almost 30 years. Okay,
Yeah,
no.
right?
But the reality, the way we were taught and how we teach is to first become aware.
Yeah,
Because when those thoughts run behind, the curtain or the door unchecked, they do affect emotions that cause us to act in a way that we may regret later. So being aware, I'm pissed, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I feel hopeless is the first step. And then to say, so what would I have to be thinking to be feeling that way? Well, I'm thinking that I have no choice. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. If you're thinking you have no choice, then you want to ask yourself, is that true or not? And if it feels true, now it's ideal to expand. Well, who can help me? Because none of us are in this alone.
right.
Can you speak to, any of your religious people? Can you speak to a mentor? Can you speak to, who can you speak to? Can you speak to God? Can you speak to the universe? Can you speak to your angels? But so that's the long answer to the question is to acknowledge those patterns, saying, knowing that you want to stop them, and you can stop them by asking, where is that coming from?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then what are my favorite three? What do I want? How can I get there? Who can help me?
Mm-hmm. I like that last one. Who can help me? Because we are all here to help. We are all here now. Some people may not like this word, but I think it's a great word. We are all here to serve each of other. And that's why I remember you saying, when we can help somebody across the street or reaching up to a shelf or whatever the help may be, even if it's hey, how are you today? Goes such a long way.
Mhm.
Such a long way.
And to be willing to listen in case they actually want to tell you how are they today.
Right.
Don't it have be cursory, have it be
Man,
authentic.
I had that reminds me of an experience I had years ago. I was driving back from wherever to LA and I stopped to get gas and the guy behind the counter, I said to him, "Hey, how are you today?" He goes, "Why? Do you really care?" I'm like, "Wow." And that's huge
Mhm.
because we may be asking, "Hey, how are you?" without even we really don't care. It's just something that generally speaking, we've gotten used to doing, used to saying, or vice versa. When someone asks me a question, and then I just off the top of my head say, "Oh, I am fine," but I'm not.
Mhm.
No, thank you for asking. This is what's going on.
Yes.
This is what's
Yes.
going on. I'm so upset with what's going on in my life, whatever that might be. Well, you did ask how I was doing, right? So be honest enough with oneself, and if it's the appropriate time, to really speak your truth.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
The appropriate time, that's an interesting thing too, because say, for example, if I get customer service on the phone for whatever it might be, their programming is to say, and how are you today? And I always say fine, and because that's not the time, they're not the
right,
person,
right,
right? And then I say thank you and how are you today?
right.
And it messes up their script
It does.
because nobody asks.
Right,
And they will so often they hiccup like, okay, wow, thanks for asking.
right.
And I had a woman say, I've been in customer service 15 years and nobody has ever asked me how I'm doing.
Wow.
I was like, dang. And I'm not surprised because it's so cursory, it's just
Yeah,
what we do.
yeah.
We call it being polite. Hmm.
Mm, mm, mm. The way that I do that same thing, get on the phone and going, "Here, my name is this." Like, you know what? I have a really important question. And I set them up, right? How are you doing?
Very good.
I'm like, no, really. And whenever I do that, 9 out of 10 times, I can hear the person take a sigh and just go, thank you for asking. Yeah. Because they have that job,
Yeah.
customer service,
There's
you
that
know?
word,
Yeah.
service.
Service. Right. Very good. Very good.
Very good. So, Eugene, how would you summarize where we went today?
Well, the first thing that I would say is with everything going on in the world and even maybe in one's own life, no matter what it is, find someone to talk to. Find someone to talk to. Um, it's, as we said earlier, can't really talk to the police or the government or whatever. Okay, fine, but find someone to talk to. And someone that I'm not even going to go as far as this, Else, someone that you trust where you can break down if that's what's called for.
Yeah.
And so I am so hurt about what's going on. And sometimes I may need to talk about that stuff so I can get clear on who am I to be.
Yes. That
You know.
question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that I would say is, to ask yourself the question with everything that's going on, even within the family, there's stuff going on. Family, the spiritual practice, relationship, the spiritual practice, the final frontier, relationship, and everything is a relationship. But, to ask that question, who am I to be in this situation? And what I love about that particular question, Al, the answer will vary because that's how life is. Life is made up of experiences, and every experience for me is an opportunity to love, to learn, to live.
Mm.
Every experience is an opportunity to love, to learn, to live, and to teach.
Yes.
Yeah. But every
Yes.
experience is an opportunity to love. And life is made up of experiences. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love it. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I agree with the process that you shared. I think, as well as remembering that we're not alone. That sense of
Yeah,
hopelessness comes when we feel like we're alone and we
yeah,
can't affect any change. And so we can often begin with simply raising, and I say simply, our vibration through the breath, slowing down, knowing that we will get through this, because the longer we live, the more we look back at what we've gotten through
yeah,
that we didn't think, how were we going to manage this?
yeah.
And here we are,
And
right?
here we are.
Um, so that's fostering that sense of community, I think, is super, super important.
Yeah,
And then it always gets back to, we cannot have an episode without talking about the power of the breath,
right.
getting more oxygen into the body, into the brain, so you can get into the alpha level of consciousness where all this stuff isn't swirling like a little dust tornado, you know? Um, and that is a choice that we have, that we can do anytime.
Anytime.
You don't have to close your eyes. You can
No.
just consciously, you can be driving, you can be sitting, and you can say, I choose to breathe in deeper, longer, slower, until I start to feel some sense of peace.
Yeah. It's funny about that breath, that word breath, because when I hear you say, what we can do is to take a nice deep breath, and that's immediately what I do. It's like, oh yeah, let's breathe. Don't have to close. Just take a nice deep breath. Yeah, and watch and be aware of how the body responds.
Exactly. Because you can't have a clenched jaw and a tight chest and breathe fully. Everything has to relax and
Yeah,
open so
yeah,
that that can happen for you.
yeah,
It allows you to let go.
yeah. It allows you to let go. A deep breath physiologically is the signal to the body to relax.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that I would um, s- invite folks to do throughout the day and throughout the week is to become aware of just one deep breath, one conscious breath.
Mm.
It's going to feel so good that you're going to do it again. You're going to do
Yeah.
two and then three. Even when you're in line at the DMV or at court or in the market, even when you're shopping, just, become aware of a nice deep breath. What I love also about the deep breaths, Al, is the clarity that comes. The mind, the body relaxes and the mind expands. Breathing is our friend.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I tell this analogy story often. We can go without food and water for days. We can't go without the breath for more than several minutes.
Right.
It is our prana, our life force,
Yeah.
and we have the power to control its ebb and flow.
Yeah.
So have it work for us instead of against us.
Right. And with that breath,
Mhm. That was fun.
yeah. Thank you, El, for another great, great time.
My pleasure. Always love sharing. I love the fact that we're on separate coasts, and
Yeah.
we used to literally hang out together for days on end,
Yeah.
and this allows it to feel a little like we're still doing that.
Yeah. 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 This is good.
Hmm.
So thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of Eugene Holden's Academy of Self-Mastery, where we are here to assist each other in living this thing called life from a place of joy, from a place of love, from a place of peace, from a place of joy. So joyfully, I say, have a beautiful, beautiful day.
Yes. Wonderful. See you again soon.